The radio crackles. A single click, followed by 3 seconds of silence. That's the signal. The target is moving. Not according to plan. The plan was for tomorrow. The plan was for a clean exit vector through the Trastevere district. The plan did not account for this. It's 10:18 p.m., October 16th, 1972. The air in the Fiat 124 is thick with the smell of stale tobacco and adrenaline. In the driver's seat, the man known as Sylvain is motionless, his eyes locked on the entrance to the apartment building across the piazza. His real name is not Sylvain. His passport is Belgian, his accent is French, and his orders are from Tel Aviv. In his right hand, a Beretta Model 71 pistol, chambered in .22 long rifle. Low velocity, low recoil, minimal noise. The report sounds like a car backfiring. Not silent, but deniable. Confusing. That is its primary function. To his left, Jonathan grips the steering wheel. His knuckles are white. He's the wheelman, the extraction specialist. His job is to make a 2-ton block of Italian steel disappear into the Roman night in under 90 seconds. Right now, his job is to wait. The target is Wael Zwaiter. He is walking home from dinner with friends. He carries a copy of 1001 Nights. He is 45 minutes early. The 2-man backup team, positioned in a cafe down the street, is out of position. Their radio is silent. They were briefed for a 10:55 p.m. intercept. They are currently paying their check, oblivious. The entire operation now rests on 2 men in a stolen Fiat. Protocol is clear. Abort. An anomaly in the timeline compromises operational security. The risk of civilian witnesses increases by a factor of 4. The risk of encountering a Carabinieri patrol triples. The protocol says stand down, melt away, re-engage in 24 hours. Sylvain's finger tightens on the Beretta's trigger guard. Jonathan glances at him. No words are exchanged. The mission objective, seared into their minds by weeks of relentless drilling at Mossad's training facility, is absolute. It has one line: erase the architects of Munich. Wael Zwaiter is number 1 on that list. He is walking towards the lobby of his apartment building at Piazza Annibaliano, number 38. In 10 seconds, he will be inside. The door will lock. The window of opportunity will close. Jonathan breaks the silence, his voice a dry whisper. Sylvain, we are compromised. The backup is blind. Sylvain doesn't look at him. His gaze is fixed on Zwaiter, who is now fumbling for his keys. The protocol is to abort. The mandate from the Prime Minister's office is to succeed. 2 conflicting directives, crashing together in the space of 3 heartbeats. The decision is his. He opens the car door. The interior light flashes on for a fraction of a second, a beacon of exposure in the dark piazza. A fatal error, but there is no turning back. Jonathan kills the engine. The sudden silence is deafening. The operation, code-named Wrath of God, has just gone live. And it is already completely off the rails. The chain of events that led a Mossad Katza to step out of a Fiat in Rome began exactly 41 days earlier in another country, at another event that was supposed to be a symbol of peace. September 5th, 1972. The Munich Olympics. At 4:30 a.m., 8 members of the Black September faction of the Palestine Liberation Organization scaled a chain-link fence and infiltrated the Olympic Village. They carried duffel bags loaded with Kalashnikov rifles, Tokarev pistols, and grenades. Their target, the Israeli Olympic team delegation at 31 Connolly Strasse. The initial assault was chaotic. Wrestling coach Moshe Weinberg and weightlifter Yosef Romano fought back. They were executed. 9 other Israeli athletes and officials were taken hostage. The terrorists issued their demands. The release of 236 Palestinian militants held in Israeli prisons, plus 2 German insurgents. The deadline was 9 a.m. What followed was not a negotiation. It was a 21-hour-long, globally televised catastrophe. The German government, desperate to erase the memory of the 1936 Berlin Olympics, refused Israeli offers of assistance. They did not have a dedicated counter-terrorism unit. The operation was handled by the Munich police. They were unprepared, unequipped, and catastrophically inept. An initial plan to storm the apartment was aborted when the terrorists saw it being broadcast on a television inside the building. The day dragged on. Deadlines were extended. Finally, a plan was hatched. The terrorists and their hostages would be transferred to Fürstenfeldbruck Air Base, where they would be given a plane to Cairo. The German authorities planned an ambush at the airbase. It was a disaster built on a foundation of incompetence. There were only 5 German snipers. They were not trained marksmen. They were patrol officers who enjoyed shooting as a hobby. They had no radio communication with each other. They were equipped with Heckler & Koch G3 rifles, which had no night vision scopes. The armored personnel carriers that were supposed to block the terrorists' escape route got stuck in traffic and arrived late. The Lufthansa Boeing 727, placed on the tarmac, was supposed to be filled with undercover police. Instead, the police team assigned to the task voted to abandon their posts, declaring the mission a suicide run. The plane was empty. When the 2 lead terrorists, Isa and Tony, boarded the plane and found it empty, they knew it was a trap. The firefight began at 10:30 p.m. One of the German snipers, positioned in a control tower, accidentally fired on his own colleagues, forcing them to cease firing. An initial police report, broadcast to the world, claimed all hostages were safe and all terrorists were killed. It was a lie. The battle raged for over an hour. At midnight, one of the terrorists threw a grenade into one of the helicopters where 5 hostages were tied up. The resulting explosion incinerated the helicopter and its occupants. A second terrorist then machine-gunned the remaining 4 hostages in the other helicopter. By the end, all 11 Israeli hostages were dead. 5 of the 8 Black September terrorists were killed. 3 were captured. The Olympic Games, after a brief suspension, resumed. The post-mortem in Israel was brutal. The failure was not one of intelligence. Mossad had warned German authorities of a possible attack, but of a fundamental misunderstanding of the enemy. The Israeli government watched, helpless, as their athletes were murdered on live television, and their killers were taken into custody, alive. For Prime Minister Golda Meir, this was an existential threat made manifest. The State of Israel had been founded on one principle: the protection of Jewish lives. Munich was a global public failure of that principle. A message had been sent by Black September. A new message had to be sent back. 2 days after the massacre, Golda Meir convened a secret meeting. It was not a formal cabinet session. It was a council of war. Present were Defense Minister Moshe Dayan, Minister without portfolio Israel Galili, and the heads of Israel's intelligence services, Zvi Zamir, director of Mossad, and Aharon Yariv, Meir's advisor on counterterrorism. The meeting was designated Committee X. Its existence would be denied for decades. The minutes were not taken. The discussion was blunt. Yariv presented the problem. Black September was not a traditional army. It was a decentralized network of cells embedded in European capitals, operating under the cover of diplomatic missions, legitimate businesses, and student organizations. They were ghosts. Traditional military action was impossible. Arrests by foreign governments were unreliable. The 3 surviving Munich terrorists were already being treated as political prisoners in Germany. Mir's directive was simple and without ambiguity. "Send the boys," she said. It was a command to unleash the Mossad. Zwaiter was tasked with creating a mechanism to execute the order. The result was a new unit, codenamed Caesarea. It would operate outside the normal Mossad command structure, reporting directly to Zwaiter, who reported directly to Committee X. Its purpose was singular: targeted assassination. The commander chosen for Caesarea was Mike Harari, a legendary figure within the intelligence community. Born in Tel Aviv, he had joined the Haganah at 16, running British naval blockades to smuggle in Holocaust survivors. He was a founding member of the Palmach, Israel's elite pre-state fighting force. After 1948, he joined Mossad. His speciality was building networks from nothing. He had established Mossad's first European stations, running agents in Paris, Madrid, and Rome. His operational philosophy was based on what he called plausible deniability. His teams would use non-Israeli weapons, forged passports from third countries, and communication methods that left no electronic trail. After an operation, his teams would vanish, leaving behind a confusing crime scene that local police would attribute to internal factional fighting or a common criminal act. Harari was not an assassin himself. He was an architect of assassinations. He recruited the team. It was a collection of specialists. The trigger man, the man who would later be known as Sylvain, was a former Sayeret Matkal commando, a veteran of cross-border raids in Jordan and Syria. He was a small arms expert, capable of disassembling and reassembling over 50 different types of pistols in complete darkness. His psychological profile noted an unnaturally low heart rate under stress. The wheelman, Jonathan, was a former rally car driver recruited for his preternatural ability to navigate complex urban environments at high speed. He had memorized the street maps of every major European capital. The surveillance expert, known only as the Watcher, was a former signals intelligence analyst from Unit 8200. He could defeat most commercial alarm systems and was a master of disguise. The bomb maker was a chemical engineer who had developed a new type of mercury tilt switch for explosive devices that was almost impossible to disarm. The team was supported by a network of Sayanim, a global web of diaspora Jews who would provide logistical support, a safe apartment, a rental car, a piece of information, without ever knowing the full scope of the mission. The final member of the command structure was the targeter. This was the intelligence analyst responsible for building the kill list. The list was not arbitrary. It was the product of thousands of hours of signals intelligence, human intelligence, and analysis of captured documents. The criteria for inclusion were strict. The individual had to be a senior member of Black September, Fatah, or the PLO, with direct operational involvement in planning, financing, or executing terror attacks. The first name on that list was Wael Zwaiter. The file on Wael Zwaiter was complex. Publicly, he was a man of culture. He lived in Rome, worked as a translator at the Libyan embassy. He was fluent in 5 languages. He was translating 1001 Nights from Arabic into Italian. He was a regular at cafes in the Trastevere district, known for his long, intellectual conversations with Italian writers and journalists. He was described as a gentle, thoughtful man, a moderate. Mossad's file painted a different picture. Their intelligence, gathered from a high-level source within the PLO, identified Zwaiter as the head of Black September's operations in Italy. He was not a foot soldier. He was a logistician. His role, according to the file, was to procure weapons, arrange safe houses, and move operatives across Europe. The Libyan embassy was his diplomatic cover, providing him access to diplomatic pouches which he used to smuggle weapons and explosives. The file alleged that Zwaiter had personally arranged the logistics for the Black September cell that carried out the hijacking of Sabena Flight 571 earlier in 1972. He was also linked to a failed oil refinery bombing in Trieste. Most damningly, Mossad intelligence claimed he was one of the key planners of the Munich operation, using his connections in Rome to secure the forged passports and weapons used by the hit team. He was the perfect target to start with. He was high level, but not so high profile as to provoke a massive international incident. His public persona as an intellectual provided a layer of confusion that would aid in plausible deniability. The order was given: Operation Wrath of God, Target 1, Wael Zwaiter. The mission was to be an assassination, but its true purpose was communication. It was a message to Black September and the world. There are no safe havens. We can reach you anywhere. The geopolitical chessboard was volatile. Europe in the 1970s was a playground for spies and terrorists. The Red Brigades in Italy, the Baader-Meinhof gang in Germany, the IRA in Britain. European security services were overwhelmed. They were also often sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, viewing the PLO as a legitimate liberation movement. Mossad could not rely on local cooperation. Any operation would have to be conducted unilaterally, in secret, on foreign soil. This carried immense risk. Discovery would mean a diplomatic crisis of the highest order. It could even lead to war. On October 29, 1972, the situation escalated dramatically. A Lufthansa flight was hijacked by a Black September cell. Their demand: the release of the 3 surviving Munich terrorists held in Germany. The German government, unwilling to risk another hostage crisis, capitulated immediately. The 3 terrorists were flown to Libya, where they were greeted as heroes. In Israel, this was the final insult. The men who had murdered their athletes were free. Golda Meir called another meeting of Committee X. The timeline for Operation Wrath of God was accelerated. The message had to be sent, and it had to be sent now. The plan to eliminate Wael Zwaiter began with insertion. The team did not travel together. They arrived in Rome on different days, from different cities, using different passports. Sylvain, the trigger man, flew in from Brussels on a Belgian passport identifying him as a diamond merchant. Jonathan, the wheelman, drove in from France in a Peugeot 504, his Canadian passport identifying him as a student. The watcher arrived by train from Zurich, carrying a Swiss passport and posing as a sales representative for a pharmaceutical company. They used a clean skin protocol. No 2 members of the team had ever met before the mission briefing in Tel Aviv. They were trained to recognize each other by a series of subtle signals: a specific brand of cigarette, a particular way of holding a newspaper. Their first meeting in Rome was at the Borghese Gallery, in front of a Caravaggio painting. No words were exchanged, just a brief glance of recognition. From there, they proceeded to a prearranged safe house, an apartment in the Monte Sacro neighborhood, rented a month earlier by a scion posing as a wealthy South American businessman. The apartment was stripped of all personal effects. The only furniture was a table, 4 chairs, and mattresses on the floor. The first phase of the operation was surveillance. For 3 weeks, the team shadowed Zwaiter. This was not a simple matter of following him. It was a painstaking process of mapping his entire existence. The Watcher was the lead. He established a series of observation posts, or OPs, along Zwaiter's daily routes. One was a rented room overlooking the piazza where Zwaiter lived. Another was a table at the cafe where he took his morning coffee. A third was a parked delivery van near the Libyan embassy. The technology they used was state-of-the-art for 1972, but it was fraught with limitations that created constant tension. For long-range photography, they used a Questar telescope fitted with a camera adapter. It could read a license plate from a kilometer away, but it was bulky and required a stable platform, making it impossible to use on the move. For audio surveillance, they had a bug the size of a sugar cube. The problem was its battery life. 4 hours. To be effective, it would have to be planted in Zwaiter's apartment or car, an act that would require a black bag job, a covert entry, which was deemed too high risk for this initial phase. The most critical piece of technology was the communications system. The team used a sub-miniature transceiver, or SMT, a burst transmission radio that could send a coded message in a fraction of a second, making it extremely difficult for signals intelligence to intercept and locate. The weakness was its range, less than 2 kilometers. This meant the team had to stay in close proximity to each other, increasing the risk of being spotted as a group. Every piece of information was meticulously logged. What time did Zwaiter leave for work? 7:48 a.m. What route did he take? He varied it, taking one of 3 possible paths. What was his tell when he was nervous? He would constantly adjust his glasses. Who did he meet with? The team compiled a detailed list of his contacts, cross-referencing them with Mossad's central database. They photographed every person he spoke to for more than 2 minutes. The process was slow, tedious, and dangerous. Rome was not friendly territory. The Italian intelligence service, the SID, was notoriously unpredictable. They had informal ties with the PLO, viewing them as a source of information on other radical groups. The Carabinieri, Italy's national military police, were highly effective and maintained a heavy presence in the city. The team operated under a constant, low-level fear of a random document check or a routine traffic stop that could unravel the entire operation. The operational plan for the assassination itself was designed around a single principle: precision. Harari's doctrine dictated that there could be no collateral damage. No civilians could be harmed. The kill had to be clean. The team analyzed Zwaiter's routine, looking for a moment of vulnerability, a predictable point in time and space where he would be isolated. They identified 3 possibilities. Option A: an intercept while he walked to work. This was rejected. The morning streets were too crowded. The risk of witnesses was too high. Option B: an attack near the Libyan embassy. This was also rejected. The embassy had its own security, and a shooting on diplomatic ground would be an international nightmare. That left option C: the approach to his apartment building at night. Piazza Annibaliano was a quiet, residential square. After 10 p.m., it was usually deserted. Zwaiter had a consistent routine. He would dine with friends several nights a week, returning home between 10:45 p.m. and 11:15 p.m. He would park his car, walk approximately 50 meters to the lobby door, and let himself in. This 50-meter walk was the kill zone. The plan was for a 2-man hit team. Sylvan would be the shooter, Jonathan the driver. A 3rd team member would act as a lookout, positioned in a cafe with a line of sight to the piazza, ready to give the signal via the burst radio. A 4th member would be positioned a kilometer away with a high-powered motorcycle, ready to create a diversion, a small, contained explosion in a trash can. to draw police attention away from the escape route if necessary. The weapon chosen was the Beretta Model 71. It was selected for several reasons. First, its .22 caliber round was subsonic, meaning it wouldn't create a sonic crack. Combined with the relatively low powder charge, the noise of the shot would be minimal. Second, the round was known to tumble upon impact, causing massive internal damage without exiting the body. This reduced the risk of overpenetration and hitting a bystander. Third, and most importantly, it was the signature weapon of Mossad's assassination teams. The use of the Beretta was, itself, a message. It was a calling card. The plan was meticulously rehearsed. The team used a mock-up of the piazza, built in a secure location, to walk through the assassination sequence dozens of times. Jonathan practiced the escape route at all hours of the day and night, timing his route to the second, identifying traffic light patterns and police patrol schedules. The plan was solid. It was professional. And then it started to fall apart. The first major setback occurred 5 days before the scheduled operation. The lookout, the team member who was supposed to be positioned in the cafe, was conducting routine counter-surveillance near Zwaiter's apartment when he was stopped by a carabinieri patrol. It was a random check. The agent, using his Swiss passport, was calm and professional. His documents were in order. His cover story was plausible. But the officers were thorough. They searched his bag. Inside, hidden in a false bottom, was the SMT burst radio. The agent knew he had seconds to act. He couldn't run. That would confirm their suspicions. He couldn't talk his way out of it. The radio was military-grade hardware. He did the only thing he could. He feigned a medical emergency. He clutched his chest, gasped for air, and collapsed to the ground, simulating a massive heart attack. The carabinieri, caught off guard, immediately switched from investigation to first aid. An ambulance was called. In the confusion, the agent was able to activate a small thermite charge built into the radio's casing. The device ignited, melting the radio's internal components into a slag of useless metal in under 10 seconds. He was taken to a local hospital. A scion, posing as a Swiss embassy official, arranged for his release and immediate medical evacuation out of the country. The agent was safe, but the operation was severely damaged. The team had lost its primary lookout and its most secure communication device. They were now operating with a significant blind spot. Mike Harari, monitoring the operation from a command post in a nearby country, had to make a decision: abort the mission and extract the team, or proceed with a compromised plan. The pressure from Tel Aviv was immense. The Munich terrorists were free. The world was watching. Harari made the call. The mission would proceed. They would have to adapt. They devised a new, much riskier signaling system. A second team would be positioned in the cafe. When Zwaiter left the restaurant where he was dining, the team would make a phone call to a public telephone booth near the piazza. They would let it ring twice, then hang up. That was the signal that the target was en route. It was clumsy, unreliable, and left an electronic footprint. A single crossed wire or a civilian picking up the phone could doom the entire operation. The second complication came from an unexpected source: a rival intelligence agency. 2 days before the go date, the watcher, conducting surveillance from his OP overlooking the piazza, noticed something wrong. A new car, a Lancia Flavia, was parked in a spot that was usually empty. It had been there for 6 hours. Inside, 2 men. They weren't talking. They were just watching. They had the unmistakable posture of professional surveillance operatives. The watcher ran the car's license plate through Mossad's database. The result came back within the hour. The car was registered to a front company used by the SID, the Italian intelligence service. The Mossad team was not the only one watching Wael's Zwaiter. This was a nightmare scenario. Was Zwaiter an asset of the Italians? Were they protecting him? Or were they also planning to move on him? The ambiguity was the most dangerous part. If the Mossad team made their move, they could find themselves in a firefight not just with their target, but with Italian intelligence agents. A secret assassination on foreign soil was one thing. A gun battle with the host country's security services was an act of war. The team immediately suspended all activity and went to ground in the safe house. A frantic debate ensued. Jonathan, the pragmatist, argued for an immediate abort. The risks were now unacceptable. Sylvain, the operator, argued the opposite. The presence of the SID meant that Zwaiter was a player. It confirmed his importance. It meant the mission was more critical than ever. He argued that the SID were likely just monitoring him, not protecting him. They could be avoided. The final decision, again, fell to Harari. He consulted with Tel Aviv. The intelligence on Zwaiter was re-examined. The source who had identified him as the head of Black September in Italy was re-vetted. The source was deemed A1, highly reliable. The intelligence was considered solid. Committee X was adamant. The mission must not fail. Harari relayed the order. Proceed, but with extreme caution. The operational window was narrowed. The assassination could only take place if the SID surveillance team was not present. This added another layer of complexity and uncertainty. The Mossad team would now have to conduct counter-surveillance on the SID team that was conducting surveillance on their target. It was a dizzying hall of mirrors, where one wrong move could trigger a cascade of failures. The night of October 16th was chosen. The team's own surveillance showed that the SID team typically ended their watch at 10 p.m. This gave the Mossad team a narrow, high-risk window between 10 p.m. and Zwaiter's expected arrival time around 11 p.m. It was a plan built on assumptions and razor-thin margins. Everything had to go perfectly. 10:16 p.m., October 16th. Piazza Annibaliano. The Lancia Flavia belonging to the SID is gone. The square is quiet. The Mossad team is in position. Sylvain and Jonathan are in the Fiat 124, parked across from number 38. The backup team, a man and a woman posing as a couple out for a late stroll, are 50 meters down the street. They are the new, improvised lookout. Their job is to create a small, believable disturbance if a police car approaches, buying the hit team precious seconds. They have no radio. Their signal to abort will be the woman dropping her purse. It is a crude, analog system. The public phone in the booth on the corner remains silent. The plan is holding. Zwaiter is still at the restaurant. The window of opportunity is open. 10:17 p.m. A man walks his dog through the piazza. He glances at the Fiat, then continues on his way. Jonathan's hand rests on the gear shift. His heart is pounding a steady, disciplined rhythm. He runs through the escape route in his mind for the 100th time. Left on Via Nomentana, right on Viale Regina Margherita, then disappear into the network of one-way streets in the Nomentano quarter. The car will be abandoned in a pre-selected spot, wiped clean of prints. They will proceed on foot to a second safe house, where they will remain for 48 hours before being exfiltrated. 10:18 p.m. Headlights sweep across the piazza. Not a police car. A small dark green sedan. It pulls to the curb. The driver's side door opens. Wael Zwaiter gets out. He is 45 minutes early. The phone booth has not rung. The backup team is still relaxing on a bench, expecting another half hour of waiting. They haven't seen him. The entire surveillance and signaling network has failed. Zwaiter is alone. He is carrying a book. He is walking towards the lobby door. Jonathan turns to Sylvain. Sylvain, we are compromised. The backup is blind. He is stating a fact. He is also giving his partner an out. He is reminding him of the protocol. Abort. Sylvain looks at Zwaiter. He sees not an intellectual, not a translator. He sees the architect of Munich. He sees the burning helicopter at Fürstenfeldbruck. He sees the faces of the 11 dead athletes. His mandate is not protocol. His mandate is retribution. He opens the car door. The dome light flashes. He steps out onto the cobblestones. Jonathan kills the engine. The sound of Sylvain's leather shoes on the pavement is impossibly loud in the sudden quiet. He walks at a steady, unhurried pace. He's not running. He is closing the distance. Zwaiter has reached the glass doors of the lobby. He is searching his pockets for his keys. He seems to sense something. He turns. He sees a man approaching. The man is not wearing a mask. His face is calm, expressionless. Zwaiter opens his mouth to speak. Perhaps to ask for the time. Perhaps to ask if he knows him. The words never come. Sylvain raises the Beretta. It is fitted with a sound suppressor, but it is not the type seen in movies. It will not reduce the sound to a faint cough. It will muffle the sharp crack of the gunshot into a dull, percussive thud. Confusing, deniable. He fires the first shot. It strikes Zwaiter in the chest. A look of surprise crosses Zwaiter's face. He stumbles back against the glass door. Sylvain continues to advance, continues to fire. 2, 3, 4 shots to the chest. Zwaiter slides down the door, leaving a smear of blood on the glass. He is on the ground now, but he is still moving. Sylvain stands over him. He is following his training. 2 shots to the head are the standard. But this is not a standard operation. This is a message. He fires again, and again, and again. A shot for every murdered athlete at Munich. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The final shot is to the head. The action is over. It has taken less than 12 seconds. Sylvain turns and walks, not runs, back to the Fiat. He gets in. He places the warm Beretta on the seat beside him. Jonathan starts the car. He does not screech the tires. He pulls away from the curb smoothly, calmly. He turns onto Via Nomentana. The Fiat 124 melts into the Roman traffic. In the lobby of Piazza Annibaliano 38, Wael Zwaiter lies in a pool of blood, his copy of 1001 Nights open beside him. The aftermath was immediate and chaotic. Zwaiter's body was discovered minutes later by a neighbor. The Italian police, the Polizia di Stato, were on the scene within 10 minutes. The initial assessment was a robbery gone wrong or a gangland hit. Then they found the shell casings. 12 of them, all .22 caliber. 1 shot had missed, striking the door frame. 11 had hit the target. The sheer number of shots was unusual. It spoke of a cold, methodical rage. It was an execution. By the next morning, the PLO had issued a statement from Beirut, calling it a political assassination carried out by Zionist agents. They denied Zwaiter had any connection to Black September, portraying him as a respected intellectual and a man of peace. The Italian press seized on this narrative. Newspapers ran photos of a smiling, bookish Zwaiter alongside interviews with his distraught Italian friends who described him as a gentle soul who abhorred violence. The assassination became a cause célèbre for the European left, a symbol of brutal Israeli aggression. The Mossad team was already gone. They had followed the exfiltration plan perfectly. They spent 2 days in the second safe house, a small apartment near the Vatican. They did not speak. They did not listen to the radio or watch television. On the third day, they split up. Jonathan drove the Peugeot north to Switzerland, abandoning it in Geneva. He then flew to Amsterdam on his Canadian passport. Sylvain took a train to Bari, then a ferry to Greece, traveling on his Belgian documents. From there, they made their way back to Israel via separate, circuitous routes. They never saw each other again. In Tel Aviv, the mission was declared a success. Message sent. Message received. Operation Wrath of God was now fully active. Over the next year, Mossad assassination teams would strike across Europe and the Middle East. Mahmoud Hamshari, the PLO representative in Paris, was killed by a bomb planted in his telephone. Hussein al-Bashir, the Fatah representative in Cyprus, was killed by a bomb under his hotel bed. Basil al-Kubaisi, a law professor in Beirut suspected of handling logistics for the PFLP, was gunned down in Paris. The campaign was relentless, and it was effective. It sowed paranoia and discord within the Palestinian militant organizations. Leaders were forced to constantly look over their shoulders, to distrust their surroundings, to live in fear. The operational tempo of their attacks against Israeli targets slowed significantly. But the story of Wael Zwaiter refused to fade into a simple operational summary. A question lingered, a shadow over the official narrative. Was he guilty? The final, unsettling twist in the story of Wael Zwaiter is not a secret document or a deathbed confession. It is the stubborn ambiguity of the facts themselves. Mossad's case against him was built on intelligence from a single, high-level human source within the PLO. In the world of espionage, a single source, no matter how reliable, is a weak foundation. The intelligence was never independently verified. No documents were ever found linking Zwaiter to Black September. No other intelligence agency, including the CIA and the Italian SID, had him flagged as a high-level terrorist operative. They knew him as a PLO representative, an intellectual, a propagandist, but not a killer. After his death, prominent figures came forward to defend him. The Italian writer Alberto Moravia, a close friend, wrote a passionate defense of Zwaiter, calling him a man of dialogue who was desperately trying to bridge the gap between Palestinians and Israelis. Journalists investigating the case in the years that followed found a consistent picture. Zwaiter was a known PLO sympathizer and an important figure in their European intellectual circles. He likely moved money for the organization. He almost certainly provided cover for other, more active members using his position at the Libyan embassy. But was he a mastermind of terror? Was he one of the architects of Munich? The evidence is simply not there. Another theory emerged, one that is whispered in the corridors of the intelligence world. It suggests that Mossad knew Zwaiter was not a primary target. They knew he was, at best, a mid-level functionary. But he was accessible. He lived an open life. He was an easy target. And in the immediate, vengeful aftermath of Munich, Israel needed a quick, public victory. They needed to send a message, and Zwaiter was the perfect symbol. Killing him achieved the primary objective of demonstrating reach and ruthlessness, while his public persona as an intellectual guaranteed that the story would be widely covered, amplifying the psychological impact. In this reading of events, the assassination was not an act of justice. It was an act of communication, a piece of brutal political theater where Wael Zwaiter was cast, without his knowledge, in the starring role. The truth remains buried, locked away in the deepest archives of the Mossad. Mike Harari, the architect of the operation, never spoke of it publicly. The identity of the shooter, the man known as Sylvain, has never been revealed. The legacy of the operation is as complex as the man it targeted. For Mossad, it was the beginning of a legendary campaign, a demonstration of Israel's long arm. For Black September, it was the beginning of the end. But for history, the assassination of Wael Zwaiter remains a chilling case study in the nature of intelligence, the weight of certainty, and the bloody consequences of sending a message. The 11 shots fired in that Roman piazza were not just the end of one man's life. They were the opening sentence in a new and brutal chapter of the secret wars, a chapter written in the gray zone between fact and belief, where the only truth that matters is the one held by the man pulling the trigger.